Throughout history, a major component of successful fights for independence has been the presence of a strong leader. A leader can be defined as someone who has guided others to victory. The most significant guides are those who leave an important legacy behind them. Martin Luther King, the Dalai Lama, and Nelson Mandela are examples of such people who have successfully led movements for their people, while also creating strong effects on future generations. However, a powerful leader is not just someone who exerts their power, but also someone who teaches the reasoning behind their motives and inspires his or her people to stand up for justice, even in the face of oppression. Many countries have a history of oppression and rebellions against said oppressors. Rebellions have different leaders and different tactics on defiance. Some choose violence, others choose boycotts. However, the most successful protests tend to be peaceful. The idea of a violence-free protest can be traced back to the Indian movement for independence, which started in 1857 and lasted until 1947. During this movement, a man named Mohandas Gandhi led India to independence from the British Empire. Gandhi's ideas and actions were key in leading the Indian nation to independence without the use of violence, while leaving a lasting legacy of a structure for successful, peaceful protests for future leaders to come. India became affiliated with Britain in the 1600s when the British East India Company set up trading posts at Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta. India became more and more valuable to the British because of their resources, and was essential in providing Britain with raw resources that they wanted. By 1850, the British had taken control of most of India. People had become upset under British rule. The British had taken control of their land, were trying to convert them to Christianity, and were racist. As India was formerly a land with separate civilizations and no unity, the British easily conquered it, and could count on ethnic, linguistic, social, and dynastic fragmentation to keep the people of India from taking back their land. Through racism, the British segregated the Muslims and the Hindus, making religious unity almost impossible and keeping the country divided. Indians became the second-class citizens. They were barred from top posts in the Indian civil service, and anyone who managed to get middle-level jobs were paid less than the Europeans. Indians were distraught over the treatment they were receiving. The first bid for independence came in 1857, when an unsuccessful revolt took place in New Delhi. Meanwhile, Gandhi traveled to Africa in 1893, unconfident but ready to pursue the new opportunity and experience of working for a firm in Durban, South Africa. 10 years after arriving in Dunbar, Gandhi traveled to Joburg, having started developing his philosophy that would impact the Indian people in the future. In India, the fighting had transgressed until Gandhi arrived in 1914. The Indian national movement had become a fight for independence from British rule with the goal of developing their own system of government. In fact, it is the only historical example of a democratic government being completely recreated. Gandhi formed his ideas from his surroundings. He practiced law, becoming a remarkably successful lawyer who practiced commercial law and strove for the expansion of legal rights among his clients. In this job, he learned how to fight for justice and learned the specifics of law. During a train ride to Pretoria in 1893, Gandhi, who had a first-class ticket, was ordered to leave the white-only first-class train and move to third class. When he refused, he was thrown off the train. Gandhi later describes this as the moment he realized he had experienced color prejudice and had a responsibility to fight it. He read the Gita, Upanishads, Tolstoy, Thoreau, and the Bible, allowing him to further develop his stance on governance and nonviolent protesting even further. These readings affected his ideas regarding the principles of freedom. Gandhi's time in London analyzing Western civilization led him to realize he would rather see a country honest and happy than prosperous and dishonest. During Gandhi's 20 years away from his native land, India, he established his philosophy of satyagraha, the idea of nonviolent resistance. This ideology was fully developed by 1914, around the time Gandhi returned to India. Gandhi's time in South Africa and London was what influenced his morals and how he went about the nonviolent Indian Revolution. He claimed that the greatest misfortune was that the Englishmen are unaware of the crimes and consequences of the system. Gandhi planned to create a state within a state, to paralyze the government without actually harming the people. He believed in positive freedom, meaning that people should possess the power and resources to fulfill one's own potential, as opposed to negative liberty, which is freedom from external restraint. Gandhi accomplished this in the form of Swaraj, meaning self-governance or self-rule. This was a concept important to Indian independence from foreign domination. Swaraj lays stress on governance, not by a hierarchical government, but through individuals. The focus was on political decentralization. His most important idea was tolerance, where people accepted each other's religions and views. Gandhi owned Indian Opinion, a journal that expressed the grievances of South Africa, and ran the International Printing Press, which he used to get his ideas in politics, religion, and society out to the world. Gandhi had a different set of abilities than most political leaders, being charismatic, a good fundraiser and organizer. Not to mention, he was diligent, meticulous, and efficient. Through Gandhi's revolutionary personality, he was able to provide social remedies for the people and independence for India. Many only know Gandhi as the religious leader, or as the freedom movement leader, but he was much more than that. Gandhi was a traditionalist, the religious innovator, a social reformer, a visionary, and a revolutionary. He organized the Indian masses to come together as one to go against the government. Through Gandhi's compelling charm and dedication to the movement, he inspired the public, raising money and adopting more people to the cause. Gandhi's traits, conduct, and ideas were what launched the movement into action and led to the overall success of the Indian independence movement. I thus began to call the Indian movement Satyagraha, that is to say, the force which is born of truth and love, or nonviolence. Gandhi. Gandhi was drawn to England to aid in hospital work due to the many injuries caused by the destruction of the Great War. Once he returned home, Gandhi noticed that a bill prohibiting Indians the right to vote was being considered by the Natal Legislative Assembly. His campaign to stop this bill from passing failed, but drew attention to the injustice in India. Because of this, Gandhi founded the Natal Indian Congress, a reconstruction of the Indian National Congress, suiting the needs of Natal India and dedicated not only to politics but to the moral and social uplift of its members. He made the Indian community in South Africa into a political force, publishing documents on the grievances of India. In 1906, Gandhi wrote a paper called The Indian Oppression, a document that protested the Asiatic Order, a law forcing all non-whites to carry passes or else risk deportation. Later, in 1913, Gandhi led the Great March that consisted of over 2,000 people in order to gain Indian rights in South Africa. Gandhi was arrested that night, but his followers continued to march on. When he was released, Gandhi went on a 21-day fast in order to unite his people again and regain his power to support his people. Gandhi began to give speeches in which he emphasized sanitation, education, and good conduct. In June of 1920, Gandhi formed his nonviolent movement in India, starting it off with the non-cooperation movement. The central strategies of the movement were boycotts of government services and courts of law, surrender of people in the public offices, withdrawal of children from government schools, boycotts of foreign goods, liquor, and opium trade, and the furtherance of a Hindu-Muslim friendship. All of the boycotts and withdrawals were done in a non-violent way. The non-cooperation movement was ended when Gandhi learned it was headed towards violence. Then, in March 1930, the Salt Satyagraha, the refusal to pay salt tax, began with the Salt March to Dandi. Gandhi led a group of followers on a march to collect salt water, then obtain salt by evaporation. He was arrested in May, but the march continued on, finally ending with his release from jail. Over 80,000 Indians were arrested, but as a result, the movement gained press and influenced views towards Indian independence, causing many to join the nonviolent fight for independence. The Satyagraha way of protest proved to be effective and was chosen by the Indian Congress as a significant tactic to gain independence. Gandhi inspired the Indian people to go against the British rule of government through peace instead of violent protests. Unlike any previous country, India was able to gain independence through nonviolence due to Gandhi's leadership. India finally gained full independence in 1947 when Gandhi was 78 years old. Although some historians argue that independence was inevitable with Britain's economic collapse after World War II, most agree that it would not have happened without the foundation of dissent Gandhi built among several hundred million Indians throughout the 1920s and 30s. Gandhi's use of a nonviolent and uncorruptive revolution rocked the British Empire, as they were shocked at the rapid speed that the revolution progressed at. Gandhi, on January 30th of 1948, at the age of 78, was assassinated on his way to deliver his daily prayer meeting message by a Hindu of the Maratha tribe in Pune, a tribe that was against Gandhi's teachings. There was confusion about what direction the newly independent India would go in without their leader and the main contributor to peace in the nation. There was concern that Gandhi's ideas may not stay present in India without him. Little did anyone know how much of an impact Gandhi's teaching would have on the entire world's view of protesting and movements. Gandhi transformed the world's conception of power through his practice of nonviolence that clarified and enlarged our understanding of freedom. He proved that one man has the power to take on an empire, using both ethics and intelligence. Through his legacy, other leaders have prospered. Leaders like Martin Luther King, who took the idea of a nonviolent protest from Gandhi's work in the Indian Revolution movement as a way to stand up for civil rights. Cesar Chavez modeled many tactics after those of Gandhi, including boycotts and hunger strikes. He was quoted on saying, "Not only did he, Gandhi, talk about nonviolence, he showed how nonviolence works for justice and liberation." Outside of the United States, Gandhi has influenced leaders like Nelson Mandela, the Dalai Lama, imprisoned Burmese Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi, and Guatemalan Nobel Peace Prize winner Rigoberta Menchú, who have all said that Gandhi has been a leading light for them. Movements inspired by Gandhi's teachings have toppled dictators like Ferdinand Marcos in the Philippines in 1986 and Augusto Pinochet in Chile in 1989. Also, they have taken down communist regimes in Eastern Europe in the late 1980s and Slobodan Milosevic in Yugoslavia in 2000. The Indian flag that waves today represents Indian defiance against foreign rule, portrayed by a floor charkha. Gandhi brought about this idea of self-efficiency and independence through the charkha. Gandhi's legacy has inspired many influential leaders and movements and will stand as an example for leaders to come of how to succeed in protests and movements without the use of violence.